Hey, welcome back. So instead of opting to show you a bunch of slides, let me just show you what cross-site scripting is actually and what's it all about and the proof of concept. Now, it's not very easy to execute, and if I was able to execute it now on a browser, that would practically be a zero-day vulnerability in a way and in a sense. However, I have a damn vulnerable web app, where I can try this stuff out. And in addition to that, do you remember something that I've showed you before? The OWAS, the OWASP. Well, there you have this very convenient cheat sheet that you can examine and review. Well, you can rest assured that the browsers have been patched, but you can take a look at, aside from the content, at the various ways that they're trying to hide the scripts. So, before you can actually understand what that is and what the let me just go ahead and explain what's going on here, what is happening. Let's take a look at this side. You have a post on a forum somewhere, or you have some sort of input somewhere where you get to type in something. And let's say that we have an illustrious user whose name shall be tralalala. Whether the tralalala is he, she, or it, I have no idea, but that's our user. Now you have this message area, and there are a few things that you can check the message area for. First off, you check how much can you put in. Okay, if the limit is very small, you can check it like this by just trying it out. If the limit is very big, then it doesn't really matter to you. Perfect. The next thing that you can check is go into inspect element and figure out whether this is specified. If it's specified, great. Perhaps you can even change it. You can only change it if there are no server-side checks, if this is only client-side validation. So if this only validates on my end, I could theoretically increase this number on end. And then I would be able to add more characters to it. Now, whether there is a server-side validation or not, I would be able to do this. However, would it accept the submitted form? That's another thing entirely. Because a lot of web developers, they make this error of, for example, just checking here within the HTML code or the code that's loaded on the client side, but there's no proper validation of input when whatever is written and then sent over. So in other words, there's an HTML limitation here which stipulates only 50 characters. But if I change that to 5,000 characters and then send 5,000 characters, there's nothing on the other end that says, hey, I cannot receive 5,000 characters. I can only receive 50 characters. So here's an error right back at you. Unfortunately, in this case, that does not exist. So that's something worthwhile checking, because then you can know how much code can you actually embed. Now, the idea of a cross-site scripting is for you to be able to embed your own code into somebody else's website so that it can execute when somebody else visits that website. So if you have a person A and a person B, and if a person A embeds his code into a website, and if person B comes and loads that part of the website where person's A code is loaded, then that code will be executed on person's B computer, and what it does from that point on is a whole nother matter entirely, but nevertheless it will or it should execute. Browsers have very good protections for cross-site scripting these days, and it is very difficult to execute it or to formulate a proper escape which would hide it in a way that a browser wouldn't be able to detect it. That's why we have these cheat sheets that we can use and have fun with and understand how people have actually been trying to hide this over a period of time. Let me give you a very simple example, like a super simple example. I can embed a piece of my own code here. And it doesn't even have to be a cookie. It can just say, I executed. Okay, just sign into the guest book. Let me do Control-Shift-C and get the debugger out. sorry, the console out. And voila, it says I executed. If I refresh this page, sure, resend it, whatever. I didn't type anything in. Well, but it did. Okay, but in any case, every time I reload this site, whether I submit anything or not, here I can just submit something at random, something else completely different. And I can then click on sign in to the guest book, and it's still going to print out I executed. So when a user with a different browser or with the same browser but from a different machine accesses this part of the website where you have injected this code, that's when this code will execute on their machine. And what it does from that point on is a whole nother matter entirely. But hey, so what is going on here? Well, we can unlet this element. We can inspect the post. Down below, you can see that the post doesn't actually have any message in it, even though we've typed it in. So we can inspect this element and have a look at what on earth is going on there. Well, sure enough, if you go, it says name tralala, or user, or magnificent user is there, and then message, but rather instead of some sort of a text message, it says that there are script tags. And since there are no filters against these sort of tags, it just executes whatever code is here. So it just executes whatever Java code is there. Now you could have sent data, you could have picked data from the user's browser and sent it somewhere else, or do a whole lot of things. What you actually embed into the JavaScript code is a whole nother matter, and is actually less relevant than you being able to inject the code in the first place, and that your code remains unrecognized by the browser, so that the browser doesn't figure out that there's any foul play going on, because if it figures out, it's just going to filter it out and nothing is going to happen, quite literally. And that is why you have these numerous examples that you can try putting in and then see if any of it gets detected. So, I mean, 99% of these are going to get detected, if not all of them, in Chrome and in Firefox. I don't know about the Internet Explorer or any of that nonsense. But in Firefox and in Chrome, this is all going to be detected. I mean, it's not that hard to try it out for yourselves. I mean, if you have it all set up, you can just copy this or just use our labs. And just paste it here and just type in the username and it's gonna load. Now somewhere down below, it loaded, perfect. And now you can use another browser. And let me just show you what happens when a browser actually figures out what is going on, which it will. But while that is happening, let me just show you here what happens. So name and message, and you have the embedding of this image here, and the embedding of the subsequent JavaScript code as well. But if I take Chromium out, which let's say I'm a different user here, where I don't have any cookies or anything like that. So if I just type in admin, password, log in, and go to the XSS stored, if the browser does recognize what is going on, it's just going to filter it out. And it's going to print it out like ordinary text. And if it prints it out as ordinary text, nothing will be executed. But hey, you know what? Feel free. This is a playground. Feel free to play. You know, if you see that it works here, that it's not recognized by any of the browsers, perfect. It's not going to be recognized if you embed it pretty much anywhere else on the internet. Now, in addition to this, there is also the XSS reflected, which is pretty much the same thing, except it's in a URL. So if I don't know, just type in, oh, actually, let's use a genuine user name, like something unpronounceable, SHC, like that's going to be our username, and XCCCC. I have no idea what that is, but that's our username. So if I click on submit, up here I will have an equal sign, and this is also something noteworthy to investigate. This is also worth your while in terms of investigating for SQL injections, which we will talk about at some point in time, or have talked about them, depending on how I am recording these videos. But hey, if you have this here, then you can do pretty much the same thing. You can, executed. So let me just craft this thing, and you can do pretty much the same thing. So you can just embed something here instead of this user name. Instead of your name, you can just type this in, and voila, it's still gonna run. So there is a certain script that's being executed. Again, this link can be sent to somebody, or somebody can click on it, and then stuff will begin to execute, which is horrible. I mean, it's really horrible because somebody's data can be taken, cookies, stored credentials, whatever, so long as it works. Remember, if you play around here and if you attempt to embed this sort of stuff into the DVWA, Damn Vulnerable Web App, okay, fine, you'll be able to embed it. That's not a problem. Embedding it elsewhere on the net will, of course, be very much different from attempting to embed it here, because every site has its own code. But a lot of sites, a lot of web applications, they share a lot of code between them because they use same libraries and same outlook of the website, and they recycle a lot of the HTML code. So you might find, if you find one way to inject it in one place, that way it might work in 10 other different places. That's bullet point number 1 to consider. Bullet point number 2 to consider is avoid detection by browser. And that is something that you can really experiment on end here. And so long as you manage to embed something here that's not detected by the browser, if you embed the same thing elsewhere, chances are that most likely it will not be detected. To summarize it, cross-site scripting is you embedding code into somebody else's code, into the actual website, then somebody else coming, completely unrelated to you, opening up the same place of the website where your code is embedded, and then that code will execute on their PCs. What it does from that point on, well, that's a completely different story. It can steal credentials, it can be used as a bot, you can zombify somebody's PC or whatnot, but hey, that's a story for another time. Gonna go ahead and bid you farewell here, and I'll see you in some other video or elsewhere.